Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Wednesday, February 3rd. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories right here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. Here are the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Federal prosecutors have dismissed murder charges against former American Indian Movement activist John Graham in the 1975 death of Anime Piktuakwash. Graham, who was extradited to the United States in June of 2006, had faced a February 16th trial in federal court along with Richard Dickey Marshall. However, continuing issues with whether Graham was or is an American Indian forced federal officials to drop the case. Marshall was accused of providing the gun and shells that was used to kill Akwash, and his trial is expected to begin as scheduled on February 16th. The February 3rd action clears the way for prosecutors to move forward with state charges based on the same events in December of 1975, when Graham is accused of shooting Anime Piktuakwash in the back of the head in an execution allegedly ordered by leadership members of the American Indian Movement. Graham was to be turned over to South Dakota state custody on February 4th, with his initial state court appearance at the Pennington County Courthouse that afternoon. It is possible that his trial and that of AIM accomplice Thelma Rios, also charged with aiding and abetting in the Akwash murder, may now be combined. In state court, Graham was originally charged with the additional charge of raping Akwash as well. The Courte tribe in northern Idaho is proposing legislation that would give tribal police the authority to arrest or cite non-tribal members and send them to state court. Backers say the State and Indian Tribal Cooperative Law Enforcement Act would close a loophole that allows suspects to avoid justice on the reservation. If approved, tribal officials would be able to arrest non-tribal members in Benoit County inside the Coeur Reservation. Idaho lawmakers have introduced a draft haven't introduced a draft of the bill yet. Representative Jim Clark of Hayden Lakes is chairman of the House Judiciary and Rules Committee. He declined comment on the bill. The tribe hasn't had the authority to arrest non-tribal members since a cross-deputization agreement between the tribe and the county ended in the year 2006. Tribal spokesman Mark Stewart said suspects are often set free as a result and that the legislation would fix that particular problem. An Idaho State Police officer says a state trooper who killed one man and critically injured another in a shooting last year has been cleared by federal investigators. State Police Captain Lonnie Richardson tells the Lewiston Tribune that Trooper Jeffrey Talbot had been cleared by the FBI in a decision that was reviewed by the U.S. Department of Justice. Authorities say a May 18th car chase began with an attempted traffic stop for drunken driving and ended when Randall Vernon Ellenwood, 50, and Ricardo Daniel Rodriguez, 37, got out of the vehicle and confronted Talbot. Police say Ellenwood and Rodriguez were seriously physically battering Talbot. When Talbot fired his weapon at the unarmed men, Ellenwood died at the scene. The FBI investigated the shooting because the chase began on the Nez Perce Reservation and Ellenwood and Rodriguez were tribal members. Two advocates for Utah's 9 Mile Canyon are objecting to an agreement aimed at safeguarding American Indian carvings and drawings near where a Colorado company wants to dramatically increase energy development. Steve Tanner and Yvonne White sent their objections to the Federal Advisory Committee on Historic Preservation last week. The agreement, signed during January by state and federal officials, is meant to reduce truckers' dust in the canyon and protect the rock art if energy development on the West Tavaputs Plateau, including 800 new natural gas wells, goes through. Tanner and White said the deal doesn't go far enough in protecting the art panels. An ACHP spokesman said his agency will look at the pair's objections, but says it's rare for such agreements to be changed after they have already been signed. In many Navajo communities across the vast reservation, health representatives make a point to know where all the high-risk residents are and what their medical needs might be. So when wintry weather stranded hundreds of people in deep snow and mud, community members got out their maps, pointed them out, and relayed critical information to those tasked with reaching such residents who topped the priority list recently. Without that knowledgeable information, officials might have found themselves scrambling to locate residents in often rugged terrain where homes are typically isolated miles apart from one another. Getting to the residents was the hard part. Heavy snow and deep mud made many roads across both the Navajo and Hopi reservations that covered northeastern Arizona inaccessible recently. While most residents who live in the most remote areas maintain strong ties to the land and can last days without leaving their homes, many found themselves still stuck after more than a week and unable to get to the grocery store and medical appointments. The Navajo Nation declared a state of emergency after the most powerful in a series of winter storms hit the 27,000 square mile reservation on January 21st. A federal declaration followed shortly after. Food, hay, water, and coal were stockpiled at command posts across the reservation. National Guard helicopters carried supplies amid airdrops as they dropped them to residents who stamped out help or need food in the snow. The Montana Historical Society is scheduling the Smithsonian Institution's Native Words, Native Warriors exhibit to tour the state's American Indian reservations later this year. The Smithsonian created the exhibit to tell the story of Indian Marines and soldiers who used their coded native language as weapons against U.S. enemies. The Navajo code talkers during World War II have received the most recognition, but the exhibit shows that Native Americans were first enlisted to relay messages in their own languages during World War I. Marines and soldiers from 16 tribal nations served as code talkers, including the Assiniboine, Sioux, Navajo, Hopi, Cherokee, Chippewa, and the Cree. Montana Historical Society Board of Trustees member George Horsecapture of Great Falls, Montana, initiated the exhibit when he was a Smithsonian curator and will serve as a guest curator of the Montana exhibit. The Historical Society plans to launch the exhibit in Helena in April and then take it to the state's reservation shortly after. The Cherokee Nation is looking for few bicyclers with an avid interest in Cherokee history to participate in the Remember the Removal bike ride this summer. During 2010, Remember the Removal Project, a challenging 1,000-mile bike ride, a selected group of Cherokee students will retrace the historic Trail of Tears, riding from the original Cherokee homelands in Georgia and ending in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, the modern-day capital of the Cherokee Nation. This is the third such ride to be sponsored by the tribe, with the original ride first completed in 1984 and a 25th anniversary ride held last year. Organizers say the event will provide participants with the chance to experience Cherokee history firsthand and follow in the footsteps of their ancestors. Last year's riders came away with a life-changing experience. Students who are selected for the project will spend the spring training both together and separately, then meet in Tahlequah at the beginning of June and drive to Georgia. From there, the bike ride begins in early June and will end approximately 20 days later back in Tahlequah. Cherokee Nation citizen students who would like to participate must apply by March 1st at remembertheremoval.org. And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country in this issue of the Native News Update. We want to thank you for joining with us. Stop by again and soon. Miigwech.